All right, so we're going to jump back into the interview between Dave Rubin and Frank Turek. Of course, Frank is an apologist, a Christian educator who's teaching and, sharing on the reasons why that he believes that there's evidence to believe that God exists, and in particular that Jesus Christ is God. So Dave Rubin here is going to ask him a few questions regarding this topic, and if you find this interesting, please follow along. Has to say.
So I would just want to return to the title for a moment. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. I think from an American sort of broad cultural perspective, most people, it's not that they're atheists, but they just sort of don't know what they believe. We have just sort of a set of things that we kind of wake up to every day, a culture war, a political fire, and then that's kind of what they believe in, the thing that's happening sort of every day at the moment. And I think that sort of just leads
going
people
with the flow
to a degree of craziness. So how would you unfurl, if you think that's a fair premise, how would you kind of unfurl people out of that?
Well, there's two questions that need to be answered. Does God exist? And if so, what has he said? Those are the two big questions.
All right, let's do it.
Right? Okay.
Let's go.
So does God exist?
Dave, I don't know if you know what you're getting yourself into. All right.
I think when somebody asks me, how do I know God exists? I say I know God by his effects. If there's a creation, and there is, this universe had a beginning, as even atheists are admitting, then there has to be a creator. The creation is the effect, the cause is the creator.
Right, so they might say it's the Big Bang and it was just a bunch of gases and this, well, they wouldn't say miracle, but they would say just this thing happened, this causeless thing happened.
They will say that, but it seems to me that if space-time and matter had a beginning, the only thing that could have caused that is something that transcends space-time and matter. In other words, the cause must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful to create the universe out of nothing, personal in order to choose to create, because impersonal forces don't make choices. Only a person can make a choice to go from nothingness to a state of creation. The cause would also have to be intelligent to have a mind to make a choice. So I always ask people, I say, when you think about a spaceless, timeless, immaterial, powerful, personal, intelligent cause, who do you think of? And most people say God, but then they'll say, well, how do you know it's the Christian God? And the answer is, we don't know if it's the Christian God unless, because this God could be Allah or some other theistic God, right? Unless Jesus rose from the dead. And if you can discover that Jesus really did rise from the dead, then we can say that the same being that walked out of the tomb 1,990 years ago is the same being whose divine nature created the universe out of nothing. So you don't get all the way to Jesus from one argument. But if you can show that the universe had a beginning and had a beginner with those attributes, and you can see that Jesus rose from the dead, then you can show that Christianity is true. And that's just one of several arguments for God.
Yeah, feel free.
Okay, pretty logical. I know a lot of people would tear this apart. In some other videos, people have tried to do that. We'll put some other teachings on this channel here sometime soon with a little more laid out arguments about the resurrection of Jesus. Basically. Okay, that's insane. All right. Basically, he's saying it's you're telling me there's a chance, right? No, there's no chance of this happening like that.
So the implication here is, and this is just one of several factors about the universe, change any one of them, we're not here, is that what best explains that? Chance, whatever that means, or design. I mean, either this value was designed or it wasn't. And it seems, if we're going to be rational, we have to say it's designed. And as I say, this is just one of several. So that's one aspect of the design argument. Then when you get to biology and you see that in every one of your 100 trillion cells, there's a software program 3.5 billion letters long. I mean, if we were to go out to the beach right here, right now, Dave, and we're walking along Miami Beach and it says, John loves Mary in the sand. we wouldn't go, oh, the waves did that, or, or crabs came out of the water and made that message. No, we'd say that message had to come from a mind. Well, what happens when we find a message that's 3.5 billion letters long in every one of our 100 trillion cells? If John Loves Mary requires a mind, doesn't a message 3.5 billion letters long require a mind?
Talk about DNA?
Seems to me that's an effect that needs a cause, like God. And then, of course, the third argument that we often talk about, which is probably most germane to the topics you talk about, is the moral argument. Because if there's no God, everything's just a matter of opinion. There's no standard beyond us, no transcendent standard of righteousness that we're obligated to obey.
Yeah, this is the one that always gets me because, if we just evolved from, slime, essentially, and that means we're no different than any other animal. So who gets to say what's right or wrong? That I can go and kill someone or rape and pillage something, place or whatever. The animal kingdom doesn't care about that stuff. There's no morality within the animal population. They just do their animal instincts. And if we're no different than that, if we just all evolve from a common ancestry, and that's all it is, then there is no objective right or wrong when it comes to morality. And yet we all know that's not the truth, right? Because we all know right from wrong. We all know certain things are wrong, right? We all understand that across every culture in all of the world for all of time. We know that certain things are just wrong. Where does that come from? If it does, actually, the Bible says that God has written his law on our hearts, and so that men are without excuse. So whether or not you acknowledge God exists or not, we all inherently know right from wrong because God's put it in there, all right? So you don't have to be a Christian to have morals. You don't have to even believe in God to have morals. But if there was no God, there is no morals. I don't see how that works.
Then there's no difference between Mother Teresa and Hitler from a moral perspective.
There you go.
Right?
Okay.
It's just your opinion against somebody else's opinion. And so that argument, I think, probably carries the most weight with people today.
Right. So is that the one you think that maybe led us to so much of the craziness today when we're debating, as my friend Douglas Murray often says, things that we've put to bed years ago, and suddenly we're debating, whether boys are girls or girls are boys? It's because we have sort of no moral basis anymore at scale in society.
Yeah, it's a free-for-all, but the very people that are arguing for that are arguing as if there's a moral right to do this, you notice. Because everybody's trying to impose a moral position. The only question is whose moral position?
Yeah,
all laws legislate morality. The only question is whose morality? And what I try and say to people is, I don't want to legislate my morality. I don't want to legislate your morality. I want to legislate the morality. The one Thomas Jefferson said was self-evident. So
Maybe
that self-evident morality upon which this nation was found is the morality we ought to get back to. Even though they were inconsistent with it, obviously on slavery and other issues, they were inconsistent. But they knew in their hearts, in fact, Jefferson and the founding fathers knew that slavery was going to be an issue, that it wasn't morally right. They just couldn't figure out how to get rid of it at the time.
As I tell people all the time, he was writing the documents to free the slaves as he himself was a slave owner.
That's right.
He was just a man of his time, as incredible as he was. What would you say to the line? One of the things that I think shifted me on a lot of this, Jordan Peterson, when we toured together, it would come up literally every single night. People would say, please define God, explain.
Okay, well, we're going to leave it right at that point. Please, throw some comments in the comment section. Be nice about it. Maybe you have some disagreements. Again, I'll try to put a video up at some point with a little more laid out argument of the resurrection of Jesus. There's all kinds of stuff you can watch online, of course. Check out William Lane Craig. He lays it out there quite well in numerous videos. But anyways, hope you're doing well today. Thanks for tuning in. Hope to catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.